very good friend, very dear friend, Keikioewa Kaopua.
Ai, mahalo ke konana mai o Keikioewa Kaopua, no Keilua mai ia. Noho ma mai manao ki ia manawa. Anoa ma Kamehameha. Nui ko ha'a. Ke whanau ia ana mai e Kamahilio, e Oko. Again, my name is Keikioewa Kaopua. I'm very humbled and grateful to be invited to meet with you folks. I've always known of your group and been aware, and I've always held you folks in really high regard. So mahalo. And I also met Olohe Walker a long time ago, and I was doing more research on that Wahine. So he actually helped me out a lot on that. We do have stories. What happened was Naluahine and his interviews with it says Kuke, I think he meant Duke Kahanamoku, Mary Kahananui. So they were interviewing him at Bishop Museum, where he claims to have been raised at Hulihe'e by Ke'eli Koleni. And it's through that he gets through that relationship that she apparently gives him her father's sacred name, Matu Kekuana'a, who is we all know there was a governor of Oahu. His story is another story I'd love to tell, but that's beyond the scope of this. But Kekuana'a had a sacred name, was Keikioewa. Not very many people know that. So apparently she took Naluahine in and she gave him the name Keikioewa. At my grandfather's birth, so as far as we know, Naluahine does not have any children. And so when my grandfather was born, that's his nephew, he gave him the name Keikioewa. And then when my father was born, he was given the name Keikioewa, and Naluahine actually came for him because my father was the second son. So my grandparents could keep the first son. He wanted a child to raise in Kona. And unfortunately, he's on my dad's father's side. My great grandma, my dad's mother's side, had helped to start a church, Kamakuama law, and she was trying to break traditions. So she actually stepped in and stopped. No, actually quite rudely too. She actually stepped in. So, what do you think these are, puppies? No. It's like, and Naluahine be very wise. As soon as there's any opposition or anything, that's Ho'ailana. So he left it alone. So for the rest of my dad's years, his siblings always teased him, hey, you would have been raised on the heiau, you would have had because apparently he had uhaya'o, trainees, and they weren't allowed to brush their hair or anything. So they always used to, you have to go barefoot everywhere. So my uncles and my aunts said, hey, you're supposed to grow out your hair and be barefoot. But so we were always aware of our connection. My dad has many stories of we called him Papa Kona. And he would come and he said, at some point he was here to visit the hospital, which he didn't care to do. But he had come and he said he was on crutches. But he said when he shook his hand, he says, wow, because I was surprised that this older Buddha just had this grip. And but yeah, we got a bunch of just family stories about Naluahine. But yeah, but we're fortunate. We're seeing now once in a while we see pictures of Naluahine teaching. I think we folks put up once in a while. There's pictures. We saw the pictures of him on the beach with was it Palenapa? Yeah, Keikahuna, right. And Keikahuna was one of the few who could actually get anything out of him. Right, because if he didn't trust you, he would tell you the story, and that's why a lot of people at his time. Anyways, this is not about Nagoya. We will move forward. So, I am definitely interested in, as Nahua mentioned, I really am interested in studying battles and so forth. And so I was watching this History Channel thing about Vietnam, and what's interesting is that one part they say when Colonel Westmoreland is about to sign the treaty saying, okay, we're going to leave. He's about to sign it, and he looks up at the general, the Vietnamese general, I forget his name, and he says, we kicked their ass. And the general said, yes, you still lost. And so, wait a minute, what happened here? And of course, the Americans still today are trying to figure out what happened here. What happened here is Western thinking. Well, every culture has its own game for strategy. Western is clearly chess, but in Asia, it's not chess, it's Go. And anybody know how to play Go? What is the object of Go?
Entrapping and getting territory.
Claiming territory, exactly. Chess is not about claiming territory, is it? It's about focusing on one target, the king, right? And trying to combine you have different pieces that can do different things, and you try to combine that attack on a single point. That is what they were trying to do, right? They're gonna try and take this out. We're gonna do Operation Linebacker, and none of that worked. They're like, what is going on? It's because they're playing the wrong game. And this is where we get those of you who are Princess Bride fans, the blunder, right? The most famous blunder, never get involved with the land war in Asia. Why? Because you don't understand how they think. They're playing Go. So with that, I thought, okay, well, what's ours? I dove into it and I realized, wait, it's KONANE, Hawaiian checkers? Really? Then when I looked at it, I said, okay, well, let's see if it really is checkers. So you go in it, how it gets called checkers is because the first Brits, they see Hawaiians on the beach, a lot of them at night. We used to do this a lot because there's probably some PDVI going on, gambling. And so they had this big crowd on the beach. So these two naval, we don't know if they're officers or sailors, but they came ashore and they saw this elongated board with two older men, and they saw white and black pebbles, and they said, oh, that's drafts, which is British for checkers. But then, and that's where everybody stopped. Okay, it's checkers. But then if you continue, they say, oh, but as we stayed and watched, we realized it was more complex than checkers. Nobody goes that far to say, okay, wait, it's not checkers then. It's more complex, and it is. So I started interviewing kupuna wherever I would find them, especially those who knew anything about KONANE. From Kohala, we have a story that Kamehameha once won a game with one move. Well, if you know how we set up the KONANE board today, that's impossible. So that hints that he was playing a different game, different rules. Not only that, we have, well, Deshe opens up the book of Keikioewa with a statement, page 34, I think he says, Kamehameha spent hours playing KONANE until nobody could beat him. Okay, he was very good at active games, which all of our games, as you know, is about war. But he spent a lot of hours pondering his Papa Mu. Okay, so Papa KONANE is what we're calling it, but really it's a Papa Mu. I'm not sure if Dr. Buck Terangi Hiroa had actually put a lot into it that maybe didn't apply. So he called it that Moku Moku pattern, he's the one who named it the Papa KONANE. And really, if we see a Papa KONANE, there's not really squares there, right? It's divots. It should have been dots. That would have been a Papa KONANE. We can use Lauhala and use the squares there. So I was very much a proponent of no squares, but then we find out later on, Uncle Francis was my mentor. He was also an archaeologist. In Kona, while he was doing an excavation of an ali'i burial, he found the Papa KONANE and the pieces. He said, because they're ali'i, he goes, it made sense. He goes, I don't know why I had to see it to figure it out, but he said, the ali'i are not just going to grab pebbles off the ground, right? He said he found the black were like little ulumaika. They're unu. They're all carved, every one. And he said the white ones were made of coral and they were square. And he said they had a divot in it so you could hold it. And he said it looked very much like a Hall's cough drop. So with that in mind, maybe they did use squares because there's a square piece there. It wouldn't fit in a divot so well. And so all these questions start popping up. We also know that Keikioewa is said to have had his Papa Mu in front of his hale, his halali'i. And apparently this was common. It was common to find a hopomo at any kauhale. It was a very popular game, but Kahekili had a big one in front of his hale. Before every battle, he would gather his generals, and it implies that without a word, he would just place all the ili on there. And just by how he placed them, the ho'onohono and ho'one'e or ho'oka'a, by their movements, his generals knew what to do the next day. It was a very effective way of communicating his battle plans. Because if you know anything about Kahekili, I've yet to find a battle that he's actually lost. This guy was something. He was an amazing strategist, and that's how he transferred his thought. So another part of research, I looked in the newspapers. This was a long time ago when I was part of the newspaper project. Punching KONANE, you will almost never find anything about the game. Remember what? At that point, you usually find references to the moon. It's talking about the full moon shining brightly. Kapa KONANE. That was common. You'd also find, today you'll find them referencing more okay, Kapapo KONANE o na kenekoa. This is the strategy of the senators. So you find that later. And then also most common was Hawaiians used to like to, surprise, we used to argue with each other. And in the papers too. And I could challenge my neighbor in one newspaper and he would respond in a different paper. So you have to have both to see the full argument going on. But one of the phrases they would use was, Pela na ili ho'oka'a no mako papo KONANE. So that's how the pebbles roll on your papo KONANE. Okay, so yeah, it's a nice slam there. But it was more common than not to hear papo KONANE referencing a mindset. That is your mindset for papo KONANE. And so it's far more important than a simple checkers game. Check. Just by how Kahekili used his papo moon, and by the reference of Kamehameha winning with only one move, we believe that was a different game that they were playing. What happened was in 1924, so we had this decline in all Hawaiian activities, right? And especially if it was considered a waste of time, or even dabbling on the dark side or anything like that, the Hawaiian stuff. So come 1924, Bishop Museum has all these papamu or papo KONANE. Nobody knows the rules. So they have to go to Kohala where they find a 90-year-old woman who teaches them how to play KONANE. So we almost lost it altogether. We had one person who claimed to know it. When you read her interview, that's not exactly the rules we're playing by today. So what we're playing by today looks more like Chinese checkers than what she described. And even the picture they used or how she set it up is not at all how we set it up. Today we go every other sheet. From the picture they used in that report, they had a whole row of white, a whole row of black, and like that. So I'm not sure how those rules would have played out, but not only we did find. I went to Hilo once and there was this aha kupuna, lucky me. I walked in, we were gonna have a meeting, but the kupuna were still meeting. And so we just waited and they were playing KONANE, and I realized that they were all playing different rules. And the one that was most fascinating to me was the one from Molokai. So the normal rules are you have to jump. That's the only way you can move. You have to jump the pebble that's next to you, and that the one on the other side has to be empty. And that's the only way you can move. And you can jump several in the same direction. That's legal, but you cannot zigzag her in. But this kupuna, she said her Molokai style was you could actually just move to the next space. And all the other kupuna are like, oh man, play her. She's really hard. She said she once beat somebody else when she only had one piece left, and she just ate the other guy out with that one piece. And of course, the game we play today, not possible. But if you can just slide over, now there's no longer about, well, get ahead of myself. Do we know how to win in KONANE? What is the object? Who loses, who wins?
That's what I'm saying.
Last one who has a move wins. Okay. So that's your mindset. You are the one, you always have. So again, if this is our thing, a strategy, this is our mindset, then we can use this as a way of understanding our elite's decisions. Because this is the game they're playing in their head. So the question is always going to be, what was his KONANE move or her KONANE move, which we'll talk about later. But so guys, we know that elite usually had an escape canoe someplace. That's a KONANE move, right? I'm going to come in, attack. If it doesn't work, I've got to retreat, so I'm not dead. Okay, so definitely you've got that, and we've got many stories of that over here. Where Queens West. Do you know the hospital? Do you know the name of the land that's on right there? That's Po'ohilo. Po'ohilo is from the story of Ma'ili Kukahi, right? Ma'ili Kukahi was, again, master strategist politically and militarily, right? Anybody familiar with this story? I'll do it real quick. Oh,
No, but yeah, but I heard
Please do.
stories. So yeah, that's chiefs from Big Island B and
yeah.
uh,
Okay. This applies. So Ma'ili Fukahi, he's trained, he's actually a Fukaniloko chief. Okay, he's born on Fukaniloko. And there's a process there. It's kind of there's ranks, but it's treated more as a fraternity. Okay, you're born there, the drums sound for you, then you go to Kapukapuakia where they okipoipoi, they execute the round cut, circumcision, and then they do this chant for you, and now you're a full-fledged Pukaniloko chief, and you can actually rule the island. Okay, but they didn't let everybody do that. So usually in Ma'ili Kukahi's case, they let him be born there, but they didn't allow him to finish. That's how you make sure that you don't have chiefs go, hey, I'm now the boss. So he was held back. Anyways, Haka from Nanakuli is now marching up the coast and coming around Lihu'e's side of Oahu, and he's getting stronger and stronger. We already have an Aha Council of High Chiefs, and they're, I'm sure they're arguing in council, bro, what you doing? And we're still having territorial battles. So Haka is getting bigger and bigger, and the other chiefs are saying, okay, we can't let this happen. They say, okay, Ma'ili Kukahi, you're trained. Take care of this guy. We're going to put all our warriors behind you. You go get it. Ma'ili Kukahi, being the master strategist, goes, I know how to take care of this. Because this is still Oahu. They come around to Lihu'e. The night before the battle, he sends assassins. He kills Haka the night before, no battle. And the council, the Eva council, they were called, they were kind of disappointed. They wanted to see his abilities on the battlefield. But his thing was, we're all Oahu. By doing this, all the people on the West Coast, their sons were saved. Now they're going to be more loyal. Because they know we could have gone in and just wiped out all their sons. But we didn't. We spared them. And sure enough, the West was very grateful and very supportive. So now, but later on, long story short, Ma'ili Kukahi serves the council as Mo'iho Oponopono, which is more like CEO, not really the head. And they tell him what to do for 9 years. Finally, he does such a good job, and he's watching what they're doing. The Maka'inana and everybody says, make him Mo'i, put him at the top. The council can't say no, he's doing such a good job. He gets to the top, he says, okay, this is what's going to happen. Number one, no more battles over boundaries. I'm going to go right around Oahu. This is where Kailua ends. This is where Waimanalo begins. No more of this civil wars. Why this was important was, until that's happening, I got to defend my territory. If I think he's coming, I got to get my army together, and I need your kalo to feed my men. So now the Mahi'ai are like, I'm not sure if I'm going to get my kalo, right? Because if we get into a battle, it's gone. Now that that's done, I'm pretty much assured that I'm going to get to eat this, right? As a Mahi'ai. So he does it mostly for what we would call Maka'inana. He does that, no more battles. He tells the ali'i you can only tax them twice a year. You cannot just keep tapping them for their makainana for their resources. And then he adopts all of the oldest sons of every family on the island. By doing that, everyone's related to him. So he pretty much leveled the field. And then what he did is he created, we know at least 2 schools, one in Waikakalaua and one at Kalehua Vehe. He gathered all his kahuna, his experts, put them there, took all the boys and rotated them through the schools. Once they graduated, they learned everything. He sent them home to teach their families. Now that which was secret knowledge became laha. Everybody knew it. And productivity on the island shot, and it pretty much caused the first golden era of Oahu. Okay, so he's already knowing he's playing KONANE politically already. He's checking the chiefs who have pretty much kept Oahu separated. And now Oahu becomes so powerful and rich that they gain attention of other islands. And this is where the big island comes in. They come in, actually they have 2 units from Maui as well. They go to, and nobody knows why, they go to Waikiki first. That's where Kalehua Vehe is, the first school. When they get there, there's just a few students there and they're like, oh, he's waiting for you at the other school, at Waikakalaua. So and the story says 49 is like, we don't know why. He decided to go into Pu'uloa and then land there and then march all the way up. Waikakalaua is closer to Wahiawa. So now, if you're with that invading or raiding army, you sailed all day. Now you march uphill. And as they're marching uphill, they're seeing all of the crops and how good we're doing. So now they're physically overwhelmed, physically tired, mentally overwhelmed by what they're seeing. By the time they get to Waikakalaua, not only has he taught these boys how to fight, he's taught them a new style of fighting, which he called lua lua lei, which means flexible wings. So normally we'd go into, I'm sure you guys are aware of the pu'ukawa, we'd hold these formations. He apparently is the first one that introduces a moving formation, where he'll start off as pu'ukawa and all of a sudden the wings will go around his head. It works perfectly. Immediately the invading army starts to retreat. They go back into a place that we now called Kipapa. They say it got the name Kipapa because it means pavement. It was paved with the bodies of the invaders because he also had another unit at the bottom waiting for them. So they were smashed in there, they couldn't get out. And then he had another unit out by what we call Po'ohilo today, where the escape canoes were for the ali'i. When Hilo got there was a unit waiting for him. They captured him. Ma'ili Kukahi comes and he says, okay, now the first war, he was just really nice. He just took out the leader and everybody was spared. In this one, he was making a point. So he goes, he orders the beheading of, Oahu is one of the few places we talk about actual beheadings. Normally it's not a Hawaiian thing. Beheads Hilo, puts his head on a pololu, sticks it in the ground with the other ali'i that are with him. And then he sends messengers to every island and says, anyone who comes here, if you come in peace, we'll take care of you. You come to fight, your head goes next to theirs. 7 generations, nobody attacks Oahu. So that's the kind of person we're talking about, Ma'ili Kukahi. And he's always the type, like I said, he always knew how to have everything set up in the right place at the right time. Excellent guy. I could go on for days on him or not. Anyway, so you have Ma'ili Kukahi. What I did want to show here is
He's also the one Keikioewa that's responsible for what we know as the Ahupua
exactly
boundary system, the ED and all of that.
right. Many of the borders he laid, the Ahupua, many of those borders exist till today. The U.S. Post Office moved a few of them, but for the most part, all of those boundaries he laid hundreds of years ago are still serving us today. So this is not sure how well you can see here. This is the Bay of Hana. This is Kauiki, the fortress. What I'm pointing to here is a battle called Keikioewa. Anybody heard of that one? That was the build up to Katanilua, which was a massacre on the Big Island side. So we're talking about an era where Kalani Opu'u has already conquered the Big Island. He did very well. His strategy, everything was perfect. But for some reason, when he went to Maui, it didn't work. So this is his first foray. Alapa'i before him had taken Hana and held it, took Mahi's from Kohala, put them there. So now he was guarding that Hana highway. So anyone moving from the Big Island to Maui would have to go through him. But he had a relationship with the Ali'inui of Maui. He was raised with them. So his name was Kamehameha Nui. So he kind of had this thing, his little brother, don't worry, I'm going to make sure nobody attacks you from this side. So for 10 years, Alapa'i maintains this peace. When he starts to get sick, and there's a whole bunch of battles that happen on the Big Island, Kamehameha Nui passes, Kahekili comes and retakes Hana. Once Kalani Opu'u, who is his brother-in-law, he marries Kalola, who is Kahekili's sister. Once he takes the Big Island, he decides to go back and take Hana. Kahekili is in Wailuku. So I just wanted to point out this is Hana. So this is setting it up. He comes to Hana and he waits for a little while. He wants to see what the reaction is. That's Wailuku. That's where Kahekili is. So he feels pretty safe here because the current goes this way. In order for him to get his men over here, there'll be no sneak attack because he'll be tacking the whole way. So he'll see him coming and it'll be kind of an arduous sail all the way here. So Kalani Opu'u feels pretty safe here. Of course, he's crazy enough to climb Haleakala. So now he only worries about the south. And so Kalani Opu'u says, you know what? We're going to keep taking stuff and we're going to move down and hit southward. So that happens. So let's keep moving down towards Kipo'ulum and then down to Taupo. Okay. There's Hamoa, so passing Kipo'ulu. And now, there's Kipo'ulu there. And then the next town. So now Kahekili is strangely quiet during this period. And if you know anything about Kahekili, he's not that kind of person. So there should have been some kind of warning there. So now they're here. Let's move that. Over here. Okay. So this is Kopo Gulch. The Big Islanders are about in this area. It's interesting. But this is called Kalai Loka'ilio, this point right here, the peninsula of the dog. Okay. So now they're marching across, they're coming across all this is kind of dry area, so it's mostly sweet potato. And they're pretty much raiding the sweet potato patches. They said it was a full-on raid. They're actually executing anybody who resisted. And they would execute them with the round kapa beater, which is called a hohoa. And so that incursion was called Kalai Hohoa, or the beating of the forehead with the hohoa. Yeah, so they said he was being quite cruel. So now what happens is what we find out is that Kahekili had two famous units, the Po'owahi, the smoky tops, and the New Ula. I always thought Ula meant red, but in this case it probably meant golden. So the New Ula. And he had them do the crazy thing, what nobody thought they would do. They climbed up Haleakala. And so as I was coming over here from Waimanalo, I could see the peak of Konahua Nui. Okay. Just to gauge what that was like, what the height was like, put two more Konahua Nuis on top of that. That's how high they climbed. Okay. They didn't go to the summit, which is much higher, but they were at about 7,000 to 8,000 feet. Not sweats, not boots. Okay, they didn't have all the foul weather gear or anything. It's cold. These guys are in such good shape. They hike all the way up there, and let's point that out. So not only can they march up there, cross the crater, they march down and attack. Okay, imagine the conditioning of these guys. So they come down and let's speed it up to the back here. So it'll show there. So they execute a pincer maneuver, one point and one goes. We're not sure which one did which, but they say one came down and attacked Pukumane Oneo, and the other one came to Pukaoho, that's what it's called. And catch the Big Islanders completely by surprise. They end up retreating. Now, Kalani Opu'u's KONANE move was that his canoes followed him all the way. So when they ended up retreating here, they end up boarding the canoes and leaving from that point. And these two armies chase them to the point, and the commander, Kane Olailai, takes all the way to the point, and as they're leaving, he stands on that point, waving his palau, his la'au palau in the air in victory. That burns into Kaleni Opu'u's mind as he's sailing away. He turns around and sees that. Oh, I'm gonna get you. And we know he feels that because normally it takes about 3 years to make an army. He goes and returns in 1 year with a huge armada and with about 8 units. He only had 2 in this incursion. He had 8 units. And so, yeah, he came back and he was angry. He was going to punish or get revenge from on Kahekili for pulling this move. But if you ever look back, if we look back at this picture here, real quick, so I wanted that upper view. This is good enough. So he had his men come up to Haleakala here in the crater. There are 2 cracks, one heading down the other side of Kipohulu and one at Kaupo. So that was his KONANE move. If Kalene Opu'u decided to wait in Hana for him, then he could have came down and attacked this one. So either one, if he had stayed in Hana, he would have been attacked. If he moved down, they came down Kaupo Gulch, which is actually what they did. So again, it's always about having options. So he got his men right to the position. You move, you don't move, we got you. And that's, again, we can do this over and over with Kahekili. He's amazing. But it's always about options and trying to cut off the other guy's options. They couldn't get down to Kalai Okailio fast enough to cut him off from his canoes down there. And the whole reason why this is even in the book, Kekuhopi'o, was because this was the first battle that Kamehameha and Kekuhopi'o become kind of legendary, because they serve as the rear guard. As their men are retreating to the canoes, Kekuhopi'o runs into the wall of patch and starts defending to give them time to get on. So he's by himself. As Kamehameha is now just a soldier in the Alapa regiment. He jumps in the canoe, they're leaving, and they say, "Hey, your kahu fell." And he turned around, sees Kekuhopi'o on the ground, jumps off his canoe, runs back. They say he fights through the army, the Maui army, gets to Kekuhopi'o, and Kekuhopi'o had actually been hit. And that's an interesting story too. He gets hit, but I think in the Shay's version, he was just resting in the middle of the battle. But they get up, and then the both of them hold off the Maui warriors long enough for everybody to leave, and then they actually escape. So that was the whole point of putting that in there. But if you were to actually draw out what happened from what the Shay gives us, you get a pretty good idea of how Kahekili thinks. He loves sneak attacks. And he's going to do it again in Kotaningua, which is going to be a total massacre. But anyway, any questions so far?
That's where the church is on the flank.
Which, you mean in Kopo?
That place right there, there's that small church on the bottom.
I have not gone there personally.
Yeah.
So you're telling me, okay.
Further up, there's 3 Keikioewas
Oh.
that are located when coming down on the right side.
Oh.
And if you want to get stones for your gloves and stuff,
Wow.
all there. So,
Wow.
I've been on there a couple of times.
Is that old Stonewall Church? Is that
It's still,
The church at the point.
it's at the bottom.
Yeah,
So when you're coming from Hana, you're up high, it's the windy road that comes down and you come off and both. Then it's, coming up and then down, then the ranch or something. Then there's two gazelles and a big, that's up there.
Wow.
that's.
Oh, man. Yeah, that's exciting. I'd love to go there. Let's see it. I know there was one church that had a stained glass picture of Jesus wearing an ahu.
That's what they done, that's by the Kaopua store.
Okay, it's a different one. Oh,
And
oh,
a
man.
bit further from there on point,
Mhm.
there is a blue hall. Also, all with a small village was, also they have the drying pits with the holes where they dry the fish and store it. All in that area still. Wow.
That's screaming field trip, but
Yeah.
okay, it's gonna be exciting. I'd love to go do that. Okay, awesome. Hi.
His two booths came out. Do you
Mhm.
know how many people approximately they have them?
The usual number for a unit is 400. And that's a really good question because the KONANE is going to deal mostly with tactical, possibly operational, how to run things there. It's not necessarily the strategic, which is what part of the island you need to have to hold for this to happen. But what's good is so you're asking how many. What we often don't think about is that for every warrior, even Kamehameha, when he was out there, his kahu were with him. He had, these are weapons bearers. They're called mamakakawa, weapons bearers. And they're the ones, they're like loading him, right, with the ihe, so he can throw, they're feeding him even during a battle. He's eating, he's dodging, and he's taking food from them. Now imagine, he has to be good enough not to get hit and make sure that none of his people get hit either, which is, I don't know if when you throw spears, when you got all the banana stalks and all that, I usually go last because I'm not sure if the guy next to me knows what he's doing. Because I've had spears come back at me, so usually I just wait. You're done. Okay, now I can focus. But on a battlefield, you don't have that, right? You don't have that luxury of, well, I hope this guy knows what he's doing. So, hopefully they train so long that they trust each other. But so you're talking maybe 2 guys per warrior. I think that might be true of today's military as well. You have as many as 2 to 5 support for every one fighter out there, including the aircraft. Right? Every jet up the F-22s. I know my cousin is part of his unit. There's 10 guys supporting every jet who's out there. So we only think of the warriors. We don't think about the mamakakawa. All of them got to be fed, clothed. This is a massive feat of logistics, right? Because we wore models before, right? I've never worn a Volke model before, but I know I would never wear it twice, right? So to have a campaign that lasts that long, these guys all need models. Every day they need a new one. Yeah, just think about not even food, just think about clothing, a model. We're not even talking about anything else. How many models do you need for one unit of 400 men? Plus the guys supporting them. This is massive. That makes these even more impressive to me. To think that, this guy made the Alapa regiment was part of the Keikioewa, which was the Alapa and the PPP 800 total. So there was another at least 600 men supporting these guys. So but thanks for the question. That's a really good point. The logistics here is unbelievable. Fitness, feeding them, clothing them, arming them, and training them on top of that. So my mentor is saying, okay, Hawaiian battles go like this. You have an ali'i nui, you have an ali'i who thinks he can do better. He will then initiate a challenge. The challenge is he's going to start planting kalo and making fish ponds because he's trying to prove to Ku that I can do better than him. And we find in the story of Kalani Manuia the oldest son is Ali Inui. His brother starts to make fish ponds and plant kalo. He's offended. When I read that story, I'm like, what's the big deal? Your brother's making more food. It's a challenge. And so now both start to open up new lo'i, new fish ponds, and this is going to come in later. So and if one does better than the other, then they say that's a ho'ailona that who has chosen the new Ali Inui. So this, again, there's this KONANE game going on. If both of them are equal, they go to the next step, which is logistics. We're going to build a heiau, both sides. Logistics. A lot of times, those stones don't come from there. They come from far away, as in Pu'uko'ola, right? Came from Kohala. That's all logistics. How you get those stones didn't walk there. You had to get crews of men and taking shifts and having camps along the way to move all these stones. Okay, so now let's say both sides build a heiau. Now, if one doesn't and one does and one doesn't, game over. Who has no choice? He has to go with the one who built the heiau. This happened in the case of Keikioewa. Kamehameha built that heiau. Pu'uko'ola. For some reason, Keikioewa didn't have that. Game over. This is why he surrendered. He went to Kamehameha. He knew what was going to happen. And he went because game over. He beat him at that level. Now, if both build heiau, the next level is to field an army, which we just discussed was another feat of logistics. So these are awesome things that's going on. So when they meet in the battlefield, hopefully, they're equal. For the most, if it's a formal battle, then they'll both meet. And if they're equal, then each side will send out a champion. Whoever dies, it's over. That's technically what they're taught. This should not be a mass wipeout of the other opponents, because Ku is not only a god of war, he's a god of resources, government, and everything. And to kill a man is to lose, it's like losing a library, right? So the mass slaughter of one side can't always make Ku happy. Right? You can't actually be happy with that. Who's going to work the land if you're wiping everybody out? So both of these sides, they put out the champions. In most instances, this is in Olohe, right? This is they're gonna lean on the Lua fighters to come out, and then when one dies, that's it. That's the ho'ailona who is chosen. That victor will pick up the body, who is now the lehua, take it back to the heiau they built, placed it on the heiau. Now that's done. We do the aha, who is on our side, we win. We don't actually have to kill the other elite. It's not necessary. And in many cases, like when Kahekili, I don't think he ever killed Kalene Opu'u. Kalene Opu'u attacked him like 3 times. It wasn't necessary, I want. Right? So, anyways, so that's the game they're playing between the Ali Inui. And then, and they pretty much play by these rules, but by the time we get to the end, we have Kahuna who are now advising like Kahekili to say, we're gonna make a fine mesh net and not one fish is gonna escape this one. And this is where the battle of Kakanilua comes into play. He makes it so that of the 800 warriors who march into Wailuku to attack Kahekili, only 2 returned. And they were allowed to return. They didn't escape. That was to go back and tell you what we did to your units. Okay. So again, Kahekili. And let's just finish the story on Kahekili then. The battle here in Oanu was Kalani Kupule, his son, who took over after he died. Kahekili came here and invaded. This is why we have Kahekili Highway here. I always thought, wait, isn't he the Maui chief? Well, he took us before he died, and he was camped here. And what happened was, Kamehameha then took advantage, took Maui. Then he sent a messenger here to Kahekili. And what the messenger did? He didn't say a word. Go ahead.
Say 2 lessons.
Okay.
1 wax, 1 white.
He said a black and a white stone. Let's play KONANE. That's what that was. Let's do this. You want to play or not? Right? Now Kahekili, again, we're back to KONANE, right? That's the language you're using. Because that's how you start a game. Take the pieces and choose. So now, What is Kahikili's response? Wait until the black couple covers my head and the pig is covers my body and the pig is placed at my head. Okay, that's the pour out to the ancestors to accept Kahikili. In other words, wait till I die. Stay over there, go back to the big island and wait till I die. Most people translate that. Now, I need to I don't like to make any bad guy a good guy because we're probably all related to all of them. Okay, so I'm not disparaging anyone. When Kahikili responds is go back to the big island and wait for me to die. When I was growing up, I was taught that meant I'm an old man, let me die and then come attack my son. But in one of the oldest articles I read, it was said as an insult. In other words, boy, I kicked your grandpa's butt, I kicked your father's butt. Don't even try this. Go back to the big island and wait for me to die. In any instance, Kamehameha goes back to the big island and waits for him to die. Okay. Well, in the article I read, he knew it was an insult, but he still listened anyways. And he went back. So when he comes here to fight, he's fighting Kalani Kupula's son. He doesn't find out later on that he's actually Kahikili's son as well. So Kahikili did his final Konane move, the final big battle to kind of decide everything, was between his two sons. He couldn't lose either way. It was going to be his blood. Okay. So again, yeah, his Konane moves are awesome. I could do this through his whole life, but yeah, okay. So I promise I won't bring him up anymore. But so the game that we have is Konane today. It does still have some elements in it in that we have a story of Lono Ikamahahiki, another famous story with Konane. Growing up, I always wondered, why was he so mad? Right? You know what? He lost to his wife. And
Here you go.
yeah, maybe that was it. Lost to his wife. And what did he do? It's a stone board. He picked it up and hit her over the head with it. We have youth here. Sorry. Yeah, and I was like, and from other stories I read, he did that in other places too. He would just get so angry. And why is it? It's a game. Why it's the ultimate of bad sport. Well, once we study, we realize this is your mindset. You're exposing yourself when you play the game, right? And basically, you're showing that somebody can beat you. And so, if his wife, who actually outranked him, had decided to take over an army and overpower him, that showed that she could have done it. Okay, and the rest of that epic, it's a nice long epic, and it ends up in most stories it ends up good. It turns out she wasn't there in several of the versions. She didn't die, but it was a stone. She was at her head or something.
So the moral of the story is don't play Konane with your wife.
Yeah. Don't be careful, because but yeah. So it's about, at least when they're playing, it's about going into now. I don't play with my wife because she wins every time. I don't claim to be a Konane expert. I'm just the guy who did the research on the historical context. She's the one who grew up in Popokolea playing Konane all the time. And she's really good. As she's playing, she goes, you know when I play, my ili is not this. I not only own my ili, I own your ili, and I might even own you. Whoa, what kind of game we're playing here? But that's the mindset she did in Popokolea. People are playing with it. But she goes, yeah, it's that kind of thing. And she goes, and I watch. If you're the kind, she goes, early in the game, I don't do the multiple jumps because you can't do multiple. She goes, for us, that's kind of almost greedy, somebody who grabs what they can. And she goes, for us, how we're raised, we don't just take what we're offered, though. Right? So, you want some sushi? What's the first thing?
Yeah.
Nah, that's okay, right? I heard we learned that from the Chinese, because they say you always say no the first time, so you're letting the person know I didn't have my eye on your food. Okay. Oh no, thank you. And then they're obligated to offer. They know you have to say no, so they're obligated to offer a second time. And then at that point, if you want some, then you can take some. So I don't know if that's playing into it, but that she says, "Oh, we rarely just take what we're being fed, right?" Because she goes, "If somebody who's really aggressive in doing that, I'm going to lead them right into my trap because they're going to take every bait I give them." So there's all these mind games going on this KONANE. Now, I'm not saying you guys are going to do that to each other. Anybody play it before? Oh,
The thing you do is you have to look at the mindset of you. Pride is there. Any scar, any disfigurement to them was a disfigurement which the persona was impacted or affected out there. So that's why Lua never selected somebody who fast temper. And so part of your psychological warfare is by the beginning of the battles of oratory, where they would start bad mouthing your relatives and things of that sort. And once you lose your calmness and relax and all of that, you've already gained one step. So that in that game, losing to the wife is one thing, but again, it's that pride. And the old saying is people get into trouble with pride keeps them there. And for a lot of the different elite back then, that was one of the tactics that was utilized. And it's that what's good is when you look at the 90 the second book, page 209, it's called Aggression. And what it does, it takes you pre-contact and it shows you the mindset of a Hawaiian male up until about 1974, where they lose the religion, where they lose the warfare, and during the 1830s, where they start using and how they offset that aggressive adrenaline and how they do it. So it's a really good progression of what happens to the male where they are living. And like you said, part of the knowing the personalities were also used a lot in the warfare as well as the relationship that being.
wait, okay, I'm definitely going to look up the question part. Awesome. Wow. And I have those books. I noticed I have to be at a certain, as I get older, I reread books that I read earlier, and I'm actually able to get stuff that I didn't get before the first time. So I look forward to seeing that again. Excellent. Let's see. Maybe it's a good time to bring up the boards then. We'll talk a little bit about the rules that we play by today. But again, they're having a tournament right now of the students on Kauai, which is going to culminate with championship on March 2nd at the Kukui Plaza. Is that the shopping center there? But the guy who's running that one, he says basically, thank you. Yes, this is just in case someone gets angry and tries to. Wow, look. Yes.
We have chairs over here, so you can make it a tournament.
Okay, so the rules basically are, and again, these are the rules that we go by. Why I brought that up is on Kauai, they're saying, my board, my rules. So you gotta watch who you're playing with.
Zenith was going to. I mean, I had one move, and it's been version of the game without possibility.
Exactly. So we have the names of other games that are played on the board. We have one called Pahi'uhipu. And the Pahi'uhipu, they are. Everybody hear them? Pahi'uhipu, they're not iri, and they're not even ulumaita, little ulumaita. They're actually carved to almost a disc shape. And that one, they use a pointed stick to make it pop over your opponent's piece. Well, I've never seen it done, but that's all we know about the game. Maybe we should try it at some point, but I think it'd be better on a divoted board. And everybody got the point right? Okay. So it's just every other dot will get a piece. Yeah. And how the game starts is, oh wait, before you even go into that, so I already told you we have the pahiku, we have the unu, and we're just gonna call these the inis. But there's also another game called Punikihi, which means to surround the corners. Nobody handed down the rules to that game, so there's a lot that we lost. Hopefully we find it something, which so far nobody knows how to play Punikihi. There's also several others, and they all have to do it with jumping, but oh yeah.
What's it?
Turn on.
Kiki, we just filled the.
Yep, go ahead and fill it up, every other one, alternating, white and black. Yeah. So again, this is the version we played today. And the rules are you have to jump. And you have to jump in opponents, so you can only go laterally and vertically, no diagonal moves, which doesn't make any sense to do diagonal and just move up. So we're thinking this is probably, by Kahikiwi's story, probably also being used as like a battle simulator. And what's interesting is we find, I'm not sure when this board was made, but there's one board at Bishop Museum where the divots are offset. Okay. I'm not sure if this is a later, if they're trying to advance, but what happens to this game when you offset it is all of a sudden it turns into squares into hexagons. Their movement is not hexagonal. That is more like the modern warfare simulations today. They use hexagon. And the reason is because when dealing with distances, the forward and side to side and backwards were all the same distance, but going diagonally was too far. And so once you use a hexagon, now moving right around the radius is all the same distance. So we're not sure if we were actually moving to that, but there is a board that actually has that form. I would love to try and play on the board, see what that's like. And it also looked very much like the Chinese checkers because they have that same offset. Okay, so usually, so the middle of the board, these four here, they're referred to as the pico. And the usual way to start a game is one person will take any two from the middle, and basically you choose whichever one you're gonna be. So you go black and you would go. So and that's how you start a game. So the middle is called a pico, and usually one of these four spaces in a wooden papamu or papakonane would have the inlay of a human molar. So that lets you know that was the pico. Okay. Yeah. I'm not sure if it's from a fallen enemy or if Tutti lost it. We need to
Well, you gotta hit on the head.
check out.
That's just
Yeah.
one in one divot? The whole
Yep.
would be in one divot?
Yeah.
And then what do? You.
Oh yes. So, and then they would choose which one who goes first and what color they are. Yeah. And then, so the row on the outside, this Tutu told us the middle is called the pico. The rows on the outside, I think it's two row, but they said the one row on the outside is called a kakai. Kai means to move as a group, kind of like outer islanders when they come to Honolulu, they all move together. Yeah, so that's kakai, means to move together in a group. So I'm not sure why it's called that, but what I do know is that if you look at the board and you can only move by jumping, the 4 in the corner here, in every corner, those guys only have 2 moves that they could possibly jump. They only have 2 options, right? Here and here. So that's interesting to know about the corners where you're playing. You're only gonna have 2 options there. You don't want to be stuck there. Now, those 2 rows in between the corners, they also only have, well, no, depends on, they'll have 3. And then in the middle, generally, they have all 4 options that they can take. So you might want to think about that when you're playing that one. But a lot of times, so now if I were to jump, when I jump, your man, now remember Hawaiians are not into talking about death and killing, right? So it's not me. When my piece goes over your piece, that's called an eye. Okay. Interesting for this group is called an eye. That guy's not dead. Because in that eye, we gave him a chance to run away. We gave him the option to heal. And therefore, when I jump your man, that's called an eye. You take your man off, that's called a holo. He runs off the battlefield. Cannot fight the rest of the day. That's how it goes on the battlefield. So these are, so definitely we take that from the actual battlefield, right?
So who's first? Who's first?
I think the person who yeah, the one who chose which color, that person is gonna go first.
So if I don't take my piece off, then that's a bet. And my opponent takes it off.
Well, I think that's one of the rules. You have to, if somebody does an eye, you have to take it off. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I guess that'll be a make, right?
Yeah.
He left you there on the battlefield. So, but yeah, so that's a holding. Oh, and if I jump, so I do an eye, you holo, and then you do an eye right back in the same direction to the one I just used. That's called a kuti. Yeah, that's called a kuti, the strike. So they have sayings, right? Now Hawaiians, yeah, we're talking about teasing each other's ancestors and stuff like that. Well, we had whole chants and things to kind of poke at your opponent while you're playing, right? So it'd say, "He ai keia, he holo keia, na uka ai," right? This is what it looks like to strike. This is what it looks like to get you off. It's all just trying to get at the other person's mind or get in their mind, right? To get them kind of angry. And that's what was happening in Lanoi Komaka in his case. His wife was just nailing him with all his chants. But let's see what else. Other rules. You may jump several times if there are empty spaces which allow it. But the rules we're playing is you can only jump in one direction.
And don't be greedy.
Yeah, be careful, right? Don't show early on that you're the type to take several. Well, that's all my wife. That's all she plays. She goes, "Oh, you're gonna show that?" Set you up.
I guess following that, if you know if the white can't, like this piece can't jump over the black, do I have to take it or I can move something else? Like I could move this one in my turn.
Okay, that would be Molokai rules.
Oh, yeah.
Molokai rules, and in that one, the object of the game would be more like chess, or wipe out the opponent, right? But yeah, there is a game where you can just move to the next space, but that would change the total.
So this, I mean, if you see a move, you gotta, where you gotta like.
Every move is an eye.
Okay.
Yes. Now you'll notice though that when I say for instance, well, it'd have to be further on in the game. When I'm actually not only doing a move to you, but by moving my player away, I'm taking away an opportunity for that person to jump that piece, right? So it's a nice duality of both a defensive and an offensive move at the same time. Okay, especially if you're full like this. So the strategy my wife likes to do is she likes to try and divide it up into separate theaters, right? So you're not all focused on one place because she's trying to get you to focus here when actually the play is happening on the other side. And she doesn't want you to notice that she's got the last move in the other corner. You're not paying attention and got you. And you oh no, there's this one. And then boom, it's over. Yeah, so it's always again. So before we play, I promised one female, Lili Okalani, in her memoirs, Hawaii's History by Hawaii's Queen. The very end, she says, so I'm looking, okay, where's your KONANE move, right? So she knows, here she is. We've had the second insurrection. They're all locked up and they're threatening to execute them if she doesn't sign the abdication. Before she signs, she realizes that they never call her Queen Lili Uokalani, her opponents. They will never call her Queen. They always refer to her as Mrs. Dominus. And so she goes, okay, well, what am I signing as? They're not going to say sign as Queen Lili Uokalani, right? But they need it to be official, and Mrs. Dominus means nothing. So they tell her, sign it as Lili Uokalani Dominus. You sure? Yep. Okay. As she signs it, she goes, you know, there's no such person. My name is Lilia Kamakaeha Dominus. My official title is Queen Lili Uokalani. So basically she's saying, so this document doesn't mean anything. Anybody want to do something with it later on? This is, I'm giving you this. Plus she goes, the next paragraph, she talks about the duress. But that was kind of her KONANE move. Okay, you're gonna make me sign this name. Okay, here we go. There's no such person. Anyway, so yeah, that was that overlay of Lili Uokalani's KONANE. Okay.
I have one question.
Bye.
If I,
Mhm.
do I take his or?
Actually, his. Yeah,
Take his.
yeah. Yeah, so you take your, good question. So if your piece gets jumped, or when it gets jumped, because it has to, then you'll take your piece off. Yeah. And then they can cheer for the rest of the guys from the side. As in the story of Cabello, right? Cabello he had to run off the battlefield, and he's over there telling his brother, use the Lord's strike, use this strike. And bro, stay on the side. You're not even fighting today. Don't tell me. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Have fun. Have fun.
Oh. If I did, it was just like checking who was on. It was probably. It's black guys. I don't know why. Right now we got hope. It's like 3 more shit. We never will. Oh, so we don't enjoy it. No, it's there.
Kamehameha to go spy. Colonial people say no. While they're kind of arguing, Kamehameha slips out with Keikioewa and says, we're going to go spy. But instead of going up Malta country, we're going to go by canoe. So they go, by the time Colonial Puli finds out, he's not happy. So he sends the unit off before they return. Because the last thing they hear is, we attack after the sun starts going down. That's what the cousin said. When they come back, about time to meet up with their men, Colonial Puli says, they left already. I sent them early. He said, had you guys been here, you would have been gaining honor with them, but now you guys got to stay here with me. But, and he was quite, he was saying, well, by now my men are already drinking the waters of Wailuku. He was very confident that they were going to win. And then by about noon, the 2 warriors return. And he goes, what news? And they use the word ahulal. It means to lie in heaps. Ahulal na poa makapaniwa. And it strikes Colonial people that, wait, what? We lost. That's 800 of the future leaders of the Big Island. Just consider that. That hole that was left, that vacuum. Kamehameha knows he should have died with them. So he may have been having survivor's guilt. These are all his cousins. These are guys he trains with. They're all wrong. So I'm kind of thinking he may be having post-traumatic stress syndrome. And to go right back into a fighting school, he may not have been ready for it. So he may have been trying to calm himself down before he gets back in. And Keikioewa is in that interesting position where he's the teacher, but you can't scold him. He's higher rank than him. So how does he say, get off your butt and get back to school? He says, this is not how you're going to establish yourself on the land. And that kind of implies that he's going to be a leading woman one day. Kamehameha. Me. I'm going to support my cousin, Kivalao. All his life, he knew he was going to serve Kivalao. But so this is this new idea to you that is that, you know, something happened to your cousin. You're next in line. You need to shape up. And they say from that point on, Kamehameha falls in line and takes it seriously. But that was a key point in history again, where he's there. But today a lot of people look at, he was goofing off, but I think it was a little more than that. If you look at the history.
He's also taken on a new land from the Karen and defeated a number of Maori units. And then he was back. So even though it did, I'm not trying to and fighting and be victorious.
Yeah, he was he was something. They said when he was training that when they came back to their training, Kamehameha noticed that that Keikioewa picked it up faster. And because they were partners, I'm not sure what their word for it, they were learning together. He noticed that Keikioewa was starting to pull back. And Kamehameha said, hey, you expect me to be good, you cannot pull back. Just because I'm younger than you and you're my kahu. I need you to go full on. That's interesting. That's also another good thing, where we keep each other in check. Say, hey, this is for real. It's not a game. I need you to train
Thanks
as
for
hard as
those.
you can. The Shea says it was basically he was honoring the slinker by saying, you win. So that one, the next one is shot off, and they turn around and just because it's sort of yielding and they turn around.
What's the place on level? It's called Kakani Villa. So that's like so that's like
But actually shading everywhere. So about getting revenue, I gotta go.
but it's the same that same battleground type of slaughter.
My brain is actually rushed too.
Oh, you mean Kamehameha's first one?
Boko Hai.
It's a special class. So I don't know. I had this like Brooke Parkway for a magazine or something. They invite parties, students.
Everybody has one in the picture, and I don't think it was like
You're gonna present.
and you get a new fellow, and you get a new fellow. What actually in the battle of the Lighthouse View, when they report to Kahekili about these two guys fighting, they said one was Paul had a spotty forehead as well.
No shame in kind of.
That was Kamehameha. So that implies that the other one didn't have.
Oh, I get
We don't, because we don't have any story.
Yeah, but you figure it out.
People actually wearing the keyboard. That's why they're painting at the gym. You aren't wearing the only as a model.
It's already.
You don't have evidence.
Still on street.
Did he ever wore cape? Are there any that were attributed to him?
Because my cousin painted one on it, and then somebody went and made a real one after that. So the only one that is attributed to Keikioewa is beautiful. But it
Who's your prisoner? 130 or something. Where did Brooke get his inspiration?
I don't know, but the name that's Kuniahi, I don't question maybe enough. The cat, the red mouth cat. He is the nephew of Robert. No, his father is not Robert.
I got a.
Yeah,
And he got his name Robert from Mapuka.
Yeah.
That's why they kept today they call it Kuniahi. Listen, my Pa had the ability to go on a foreign ship. Just by looking at it, he knew how to build a ship, and he would paint ships here, the only thing they didn't have was nails. So he used to use wooden pegs. But they said he built it for install ships to come out. What Bob? He's called a shipwright.
Nationality. Yeah.
And that makes it so that story of Kamehameha in Waikiki, visiting ship, goes on board, Waipa, all those guys are with him. So they were here for the Battle of One, right? It must have been afterwards. Foreign ship comes up, they paddle up, and he's wearing his red vest thing, because this thing does anytime we visit with foreigners, you gotta wear your foreign. They're wanting to see the Ahubula and he comes out, and so he gets up. They say as soon as Kamehameha gets on the deck, he notices one of their anchors. And he's looking at it, and the captain kind of jokes, and he says, "You can pick it up, you can have it." Kamehameha goes, "What about the chain piece?" Yes, "Oh, that you can pick it up, yeah, you can have it." And they're all laughing and they're thinking, if Kamehameha has a superpower, it's lifting heavy stuff, right? Not how so what does he do? He grabs it, takes off his vest.
They're gonna be late.
Yes, you don't joke me, right?
Right.
His English was getting better. You don't joke me, right? "Oh, no, you should pick it up." He said he wrapped the chain around it. Now you know those chains are wrapped it around, and I'm looking up. Usually, I don't know if it's the whole chain, but usually a chain is supposed to be two and a half the length of the chain. So he gets it, wraps it around, picks up the chain and the anchor, walks over to the gun. And everybody's in shock, right? Because the guy was in his late 50s, maybe 60.
They made up their own.
Picks it up, puts it down. Oh no, he's holding it by the gunner, and he has one of his helpers come and take off the chain. He tosses the thing over into 40 feet of water, turns around, grabs the chain, dumps it offshore, and the captain's like looking over again.
You just lost it, right?
Wasted the anchor and the chain. And
Because they were typical local guys.
you said if I can throw it over, it's mine. Don't worry about it. When you come back next time, you're gonna see it on shore.
Yeah.
Sure enough,
Right.
ordered it, the men came,
That's what I call it. You got
move in, come back up there, take your turn, they got it all
I
over
said,
the shore.
tell that guy, you have 10 acres on.
But, so that was an interesting, now, it didn't stop there, the guy, it went on to the anvil of the ship, that's a big anvil. He goes, "What about this?" "Oh yeah, you know that." What's the hell?
But they learned their lesson.
Oh, they did. Okay, wait. And we're like, what was he gonna do with that? And realize, White Paw on the way over is probably going, "I can build this ship, I can make it anchor." You see the anchor? I got this. I got this. And so we're looking at what is the size of the anchor. So the ship that would have come over, the ones that has to be at least a schooner, smaller ones can't make it all the way around the south around here. So we say it's the smallest schooner. If it's one of, they have two anchors, the fore and the aft. The fore is 900 pounds, the aft is 7. Yeah, that's without the chains. If that was their own anchors, right? We don't know for sure, but we're trying to measure. Are they a tender for a bigger ship? Right? Maybe the anchor is for an even bigger ship. We don't know. But the bad thing that happens from this is we become famous for being able to recover stuff from the ocean.
Yeah.
And then that begins the trade of Kanaka. Because they start to try and trap Kanaka. Everybody wants a Kanaka on the ship to recover stuff for it. It's a diver, basically. And so they would invite Hawaiian, "Oh, you want to go on a trip?" And boom, they take off with them. So once Hawaiians figured that out, they stopped going. And so they would go down to Australia and other places and sell the Kanaka like slaves. Now so they had an industry of slavery for Kanaka. Once the Hawaiians figured out that we're not doing this anymore, then they went to Samoa, who couldn't do what we did, but they looked like us, and they started selling them as Kanaka. And then eventually they ended up in Papua New Guinea, trying to track them. Of course, they're like, "We don't know what to talk in there," but they do call themselves Kanaka or Kanak.
Yeah, well, it's a generic term for Pacific Islanders, right?
Right? They call themselves Kanak. That was interesting. But yeah, so that's kind of started that whole
But it's
trading.
weird, but if you obviously like holding it and then and you know it's bad.
That's Scotty's volunteering to get you straight.
Okay, that one. You get out. See, I need my glasses.
So the offer back in, but that's legit. He turned it down.
Clear up all.